Hey folks, welcome back to another tutorial. In this one, I'm going to show you how to make this incredible dice tower. It's super nifty, it's modular, so you can keep stacking it. You can make it shorter, you can make it bigger, whatever you like, and add your own embellishments to this. It works brilliantly and it partners well with the dice tray that we modeled in the previous tutorial. Now, in this tutorial, it is a step above the previous tutorial, so we are going to be venturing into some new techniques using the mirror modifier, doing some proper internal designing. It's a little bit more complex, a little bit longer, but worth it because you're going to learn even more skills building on what you've learned so far. So if you haven't checked out my previous tutorials, check them out now. If you're ready to go, let's get into it. Okay folks, let's start as we always do by firing up Blender and saying hello to our old friend, the default cube. Before we do anything, I want you to go to the Scene Properties tab over here and make sure that your units are set to centimeters. We need to make sure that all of our measurements are within the parameters of our 3D printers. Right now, or sometimes when it's set default to meters, that'd be way too much for our 3D printer unless for some reason you have an enormous 3D printer tucked away somewhere in your garage. But yeah, let's set this to centimeters, and then we're going to say goodbye to our old friend, the default cube, because we are going to delete him, leaving us with an empty scene to add our first models into. With our scene set up, we can now dive into the modeling. So we're going to think about this in three separate parts. Our dice tower is going to have a top part, a middle part, and a bottom part. The top part is where we will put the dice in, the middle part is where it'll jumble around, and the bottom part is where it'll spew it out at the bottom. So let's do that by creating three separate cubes. But the top part and the bottom part are going to be very similar, so I'm only going to model two cubes for the moment. So hit Shift A, and then go to Mesh and go to Cube. And then in the bottom left, you'll see the Cube menu. Hit the little chevron, and we're going to bring this to 10 centimeters. I want that to be, it's going to be 10 centimeters, so it'll be 30 centimeters tall once it's done. So if I hit Enter, you'll see that it shrinks right down, and there it is. Now, a tool that we've not used before in the tutorials that I've done previous to this. If you haven't seen them, please check it out. I'm doing them in sequential order and adding more tools and tips as we go. If you've seen them before, thank you for watching. If you're new here, thanks for joining. So the tool that we're going to use is called Subdivide. So if I hit 3, you'll see that I have face select activated, and I can hit all of these different sides. You can see that this cube has 6 sides, like a 6-sided die. Now, if I hit A to select all, right click and hit Subdivide, you will see now that it divides up all of those faces. Now, if I hit A and then Subdivide again, you'll see that it divides it even further, which is great. But hit Control Z, we only need to do it once for this moment. And that has added these extra faces to our geometry. Once we're there, we can now go into our modifier panel, and we are going to go to Generate and then Solidify to add some thickness to this model. Now, change the offset to 1, change it to even thickness, and then change the thickness to 0.4. So that means the skin of this that we've added to this model will be 0.4 millimeters thick, which is perfect for 3D printing. Now, if you go to the top here and go to the X-ray menu, you can see what we have now. You can see that there is like a second skin on top of our model. If you come out of X-ray and we go into the Solidify panel and hit Apply, this has now added that to our model. One last thing we're going to do for this build to make our lives so much easier, we are going to build it using a mirror modifier. Because there's going to be some internal parts to this, we need to be able to see those. So to get to that, we are going to go back into the X-ray. We are going to hit 1, so we're looking at the front face, and we are going to highlight, making sure you've got 3, so face select is on, and we're going to highlight all of one side then hit X and delete the faces, cutting our model in half. Now, the reason we want to do that is now we can just go back to the modifier menu, go to generate, and go down to mirror modifier. And you'll see here with the X-ray off, it adds in a mirror of our model on the other side of our little origin point there. So that's perfect. That's everything that we need. We don't need to apply that, but you can see here in the mirror modifier menu, when we're in edit mode, we can choose to not display it by toggling this little button here. So now we can see the internal parts of our model. Great. So that I am now going to duplicate, and I am going to just click so it's there. And I'm going to, for the first cube, I am going to put top. And then for the bottom cube, I am going to put middle. And then we are going to hide the middle cube and just work on the top cube for the moment. Okay, so when we're thinking about our dice tower and thinking about it in 3 different parts, with this being the top, we need to create an opening on the front of the cube, like here, so the dice can go in and then they can spew out the bottom into the second part, into the middle. So how are we going to do that? Now, if we have in edit mode, we have the mirror modifier turned off, you can just, back in here, we can say, okay, display the modifier in edit mode. So it's going to show the other half of the model. But the beauty of the mirror modifier is we only have to work on half the model and it will replicate on the other side. So for example, if we select this front face and I hit X and delete that face, you'll see it also deletes on the other side. Wonderful. So if I now delete this face too on the interior part of the model, that also deletes that face, which is great. Now, that's going to be the way in. We need a way out for the dice too. So we can go to the bottom and imagining it's coming down here and then sliding across and popping out here. We can delete this face and also this face. Awesome. So we have created some holes in our mesh, which are going to be a problem, but we can fix those shortly. But for the moment, you can see that we now have an entrance and a exit. Now, the issue is if the dice go in there without some kind of ramp, there's a chance that they could get stuck by just landing on that lip. So we need to create an internal lip. And this is another reason the mirror modifier is so great, because if we try and model it here, it gets a little bit clunky. So what we can do is just turn off the middle mirror modifier for the moment, or at least the view of the mirror modifier, so we can see the internal geometry of our model. Great. Now, super easy. We can hit 2 to go into edge select. And if we hit that edge there, and we hit and hold shift and hit that edge there, and then hit join, you see there, it created some geometry all the way around. So now if you go back to and select that edge, and that edge there, and then I hit F, it creates a face. Excellent. Now, we actually have some extra parts inside of our model that we don't need anymore. So we can hit 3 to go into face select, select this face, and this face, and then hit X and delete faces. And now it's got rid of all that additional geometry that we do not need. Now, you can see here that we do have these gaps on either side, but we can easily fill those by making sure we have 2, which is edge select, hitting this edge, and then hitting F to create a face. Now, a tool that I've talked about before, or a cool tip, if you hit this edge here, it will, when you hit F and creating faces, it will follow along the natural sort of direction of the geometry. So if I hit F now, you'll see that it creates a face there. And then if I hit F one more time, it will create a face there. Now, be careful, because if you hit it again, you'll see that it creates a face here, but we don't want that because this is half of our model, and when we join it together, we don't want there to be faces touching in the middle, because that can create issues with our slicing software for 3D printing and can create issues in the model. So when these 2 pieces fit together, like so, boop, and if I use X-ray again, you'll see they have a neat seam there, and as long as in the mirror modifier, we want clipping and merge activated, they're going to stick together, creating us a tight model. Now, in 3D printing, there's something called or in 3D modeling, a non-manifold model. Now, that means if we try to print this, because it's not a complete model and there are lots of gaps in it, our 3D software would then have to try and guess and fill in those gaps, and it can create all sorts of issues and sometimes just not print at all. Imagine a manifold model being something that is completely airtight or completely watertight. So like a cube with all the edges connected, there's no gaps in it, so the slicer doesn't have to try and guess. So as long as your model, if you filled it with water, it would be watertight. That is going to be good for 3D printing, and that is how we're going to design this. I hope that makes sense. The more you do this and the more you practice this, you'll see what that means. And the more that you experiment with different models and making your own models, you'll figure out that there must be some gaps somewhere that I've missed or forgotten about. Very common, something that I still work with and figure out. It's just part of the process. So yeah, let's get rid of some of the other gaps here. We know that at the bottom here, we also have these gaps here. So I'm going to hit 2, and I'm going to select, holding Shift, I can select those 2 edges, hit F to create another face. And then again, if I hit 2 and hit Edge Select on that face, and then hit Face and Face again, it will create that edge for us. And there you go. And now you see that we have half the model there. We have an input and an output. If I show the modifier again, or if I just go into object mode by hitting Tab, we now have the top part of our dice tower modeled. We have a way for the dice to go in, we have a little ramp, and we have an output there that will allow it to go into the second part of the dice tower, which we can model right now. Excellent work, everyone. Okay, with the top part modeled, we can either hit this little eye up here to hide it, or we can just hit H, which will hide that model. Now, where it says middle in our scene menu here, you can click that and then click where the eye would be to bring that one back. So this is going to be the middle part of our model. Going into our edit mode, you'll see here that we'd cut this in half already. Now, for this model, we need a gap at the top for the dice to fall through. We need a ramp, and then we need a hole at the bottom for it to go into the next part. So very easy. Hit 3 to go into face select, and we're going to select this face and this face because that will be our way in. And we're going to select, holding Shift, we're going to select this face, and then hit X and delete faces. Great. So now we have the input and the output. And very similar to what we did before on the previous model, if we hit 2 and 2 there, and then hit J, that is going to create, the most important reason we're doing that is to create this line here that splits this face in 2. So when we clean it up, we can delete this part of the face, which you'll see. If we hit 2 now and select this edge, this edge, this edge, and then hit F to create a face, and then hit 3 to go into face select, and hit this, hold Shift, grab this face, and hit X and delete faces. It's similar to what we're doing, but with a different entrance and different exit point there of our model. Yeah, and then again, we're going to do what we did before and just make sure that this is tight by creating a lip on our model. So hit F to create a face there, 2 to grab that little line in there. You see that? That little line in there. There we go. Got a better view on that. So hit F, and then F one more time, just so it runs all the way along here. Wonderful. And then again at the top, grab this edge and this edge. Going to hit F, hit that small edge, hit F, and then F one more time, thus creating the middle part of our model. So if we show the other half, you'll see here now that the dice from the top part will drop in here, and then they will drop out the bottom, hitting this ramp, which will, shake the dice around even more. One little extra step we're going to do on this part of the model is we are going to add a loop cut, because we're going to add a lip at the top for the top part of our model to sit in. Otherwise, there's nothing attaching them together at the moment. So to do that, we're going to hit Control R to bring up our loop cut menu. We only need one. So we're going to hit, accept. And we're going to bring this up kind of near the top here to add a loop cut. Now, if we, somewhere near the edge, if we go into face select mode, hold Alt and click near that edge, it is going to select all of the faces around that top edge. And we are going to extrude those out to create the lip that is going to grip the top part of the model. So to do that, we're going to hit, we can actually hit Z here to go in a top-down menu to get a better look at this. We're going to hit Extrude, then we're going to hit S to scale, and then we're going to hit Shift-Z to say, do not scale this on the Z-axis, only scale it on the X and Y-axis. So then we can move our mouse, and you'll see here that it expands it out a little bit. Now, you'll see here it's expanding it out into our mirrored geometry, which we do not want. So the reason that is happening is I don't have clipping set in my mirror modifier. So I'm going to hit Control Z, and I'm going to turn clipping on and try that again. So we're going to go extrude. We're going to scale it so it extrudes outward, but we're going to do that not on the Z-axis by hitting Shift-Z. Now when I do it, you'll see that there is a neat line where the two models meet, which is what we want. And we don't need this to go out too far. So I'm just going to bring it out a little bit far here, a little bit, you can see here, just up to this line. But I do want my edges to match. So what we can do is we can grab just this face and this face, go hit Z or 7 on the numpad to get the top view. And we're going to hit G to grab those faces, and we're going to grab them on the X-axis. Just pull that out just a tiny bit so it's more of a uniform lip. There we go. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it's nice when it is. Okay, there we go. Now, we've got a little lip here. We can grab this face, this face, this face, and this face. And we're just going to hit E to extrude, and it will extrude in the direction that the faces are facing, like right out from the face. And we're just going to bring this up just a teeny bit. And this was now created a lip for our model to sit in, which is excellent. The last thing to think about, just to make it a little bit easier on the 3D printer, is if we hit 2 and go into edge select mode, let's select this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge, and then hit G to grab, and then Z to grab it on the Z-axis, and just pull this up. The reason being is this creates less of an overhang, so when we 3D print it, it'll be much easier for it to print because there isn't a huge overhang. If it's just flat like this, there's nothing for the filament to sit on, so it can sag and create issues. If it's like this, it can slowly build the filament out, which works way better for 3D modeling. It's just a really good thing to learn and a good thing to get in practice for. But that is it. We now have, if we turn the mirror modifier off for a second, you can see we have a way in. We have it'll bounce on here and go into the bottom part of our model. And we've even created a lip for the top part of our model to sit in. It'll either push fit in there, or we can glue it, or whatever you like. So that's awesome. Great job, everyone. That is the middle part of our model done. So just the bottom part to do now. Okay, folks, just a quick check-in to say you're doing brilliantly. Well done getting to this part. If you've been following along with this beginner series, this is definitely a jump up from the previous tutorials, so give yourself a pat on the back. We're using different modifiers, we're using different techniques, and we're making quite a complex model, so just well done. If you feel like you're completely lost and you don't know what's going on, I implore you to check out my earlier tutorials. I have an amazing deck box tutorial, a dice tray tutorial, and a beginner foundational knowledge tutorial, which just gives you a good overview of Blender. However you found me, please like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. I really appreciate you. But yeah, enough of that. Let's get on and model the third part. Okay, folks, on to the bottom part of our model. And at this point, it is important for us to remember that we are 3D artists, not idiots. We are going to work smarter, not harder. And how do we do that? Well, we can select the top part of our model, make sure the middle part that we just designed is hidden, and we can hit Shift D to duplicate it. If we make sure it's actually selected, there you go. Shift D to duplicate it, and you can see it's duplicated here, because if I move around, you'll see the other part. But if I hit Escape, it's just going to leave it right where it is, which is totally fine. You can now hide the one that says top by clicking the eye, and then on here, let's rename this to bottom, just so we don't get confused. Now, the reason we can just duplicate that is because we basically have what we need, but upside down, right? Because we have the entrance and then the exit. So with this selected, let's hit R to rotate it 180 degrees, and let's do that on the y-axis. Perfect. So now it is the opposite way up. It looks like nothing's changed, but yeah, that's looking good to me. Now, let's turn off our edit mode modifier to see the half that we have. And now it isn't quite right, because it will bounce down here, and although it may come out, without us having a little ramp here, it won't necessarily, spew out the hole, which is what we want for our dice tower, for it to be working really efficiently. But, we've done this. We've done this so many times now. This is going to be the rinse and repeat of what we've just done. So very easily, we are going to do what we've done before. Select this edge. Make sure you hit 2, so you're in edge select mode. Hit this edge, and then hit J to create that line that we need. And then hit this edge, hold Shift, this edge, and then F to create a face, basically mirroring what we did up here, right? And then we can go into 3 into face select mode, select that face, and that face by holding Shift and selecting them. Then hit X and delete faces. And now we have exactly what we need. We don't have to make any other changes there, because now when we turn on the mirror modifier, we have our ramp. Isn't that awesome? So the last thing to do is to create the lip that we did on the previous model. So we know how to do that now. We can just hit Control R, create the loop cut, bring that up to, around here. Hit 3 and go into face select mode. Select this face, hold Shift, this face, hold Shift, this face, and this face. Now, if I click off, remember, we can select all the faces that are in a row by selecting, like going near the edge and holding Alt and clicking, and then that will select all of them in one go. Then hit 7 on the numpad to get the top view, and hit E to extrude, S to scale it out, and then Shift Z to constrain it to the X and Y axes and bring this out to around where we had it before, which was that line. And then we can also hit G, so to grab on the X-axis and bring that out to the other line, just to make that lip very uniform. There we go. Great. And then we can hit 3 to make sure we're in face select mode. Hit that, select that face, that face, that face, and that face. And then if we go into, we need to have a side view here. And then we hit E to extrude and just bring that up a little bit. Great. And then as we did on the previous model, hit 2, hit those edges, and then hit G to grab that on the Z axis and bring this up to create that nice sort of tower lip, which is cool because it also creates like this kind of crenellated tower look, it almost, it almost makes it look like a castle. And, as you design this further, you can add some embellishments and maybe make this look more like a castle. But there you have it. That is the bottom piece modeled. So let's put all 3 of these pieces together and see what it looks like with our finished design. Okay, so now I'm going to bring all 3 models back to the scene. So if I click the middle part and the top part, and you'll see it creates this kind of mesh. It creates this sort of like wavy gradient pattern where when it shows two meshes colliding, because currently they're all right on top of each other. So if I hit the top model and then I hit G to grab it on the z-axis, and I just bring this up to sit in that lip like so. There you go. And then I grab the bottom model and zoom out, and then hit G and grab Z to bring this down. And again, sort of sit it in the middle part of our model. And there you have our dice tower. So let's just make sure that this works, hey? So we have it going in there. Let's see, do X-ray mode. Ooh, okay, so we have it going in there, going through there. It's going to come down here, bounce on this part, and then, this one is the wrong way around. So coming out of X-ray, we can just rotate this 180 degrees on the Z-axis. So it'll spin on the Z-axis. And now we have it. So it's going to go in here. Let's go into X-ray mode again. There you go. Look at that. So it's going to, dice is going to come in here, tumble down here, bounce off this lip, tumble down here, bounce off here, and then spit out here. Excellent. Now, if you followed my dice tray tutorial, you can plonk this on the dice tray and then have it, spew into that dice tray, and you have two pieces that work together. Isn't that awesome? But that is it, folks. The dice tower is complete. Now, if you want to go on and add some more embellishments and play around with the design, you absolutely can. You have everything you need now of the basis of your model. So let's prepare this for printing and then get it printed and see how it turns out. Okay, the very last part is to export these as STLs so we can drop them into our slicer for 3D printing. And to do that, we're going to click on the first model, make sure only one of them is highlighted, and we're going to go to File, Export, STL, and then we can name it whatever we like. I'm saving it to our Dice Tower tutorial folder. You can see I've already saved one here just to practice. And we want to include selection only, and then we also want to make sure that we apply modifiers. This means when it exports the STL, that mirror modifier we have on will be applied, making it a whole model. So all we have to do then is hit XTL, and now we do the same for the middle part, File, Export, STL, and then I'm going to put Dice Tower middle. Boop, can't spell. There we go. Export, apply modifiers, selection only, export, and then the bottom part, File, Export, STL, Dice Tower, bottom. And that is it. Your model is exported and ready for printing. You can add this to your slicer of choice, get this ready, fire it off to your 3D printer, make sure that you position your models in the correct way so they print best. Some of these will need to be flipped over and supports will need to be added. I recommend supports with build plate only. I will have another video coming out showing my favorite settings and some recommended settings for a variety of different models. But for now, you can just add them to your build plate, add supports, print them, and watch them fly. I'm going to do that right now, and let's see how this thing has turned out. And here it is, folks, an epic dice tower made out of modular pieces, so you could just keep stacking this up if you like. It prints out beautifully, it looks incredible, and let's test. Works great. I got a 16. So if you partnered this up with the dice tray in my previous tutorial, you're now getting yourself some pretty nifty gaming gear that you have designed all by yourself. You should be incredibly proud. If you haven't checked out my tutorials, check out my Dice Tower tutorial or my Dexbox tutorial and come back each week as I'll be making more and more tutorials as we go. So thank you so much for being here. I've been Copper Thumb. You've been awesome. Check out my tutorials, subscribe, like, ring the bell, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.